look at this, an orange ball, which no one's ever thought of. See, you already following it way better. Look at his eyes. You're looking more engaged now.
Buddy, custom ball like that is gonna cost a lot of money.
Of course it's custom. It's an original ball for an original guy. It's a Marty Supreme, not the Marty normal ball.
Welcome to this special Oscars episode of Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. With the Academy Awards quickly approaching, it's the perfect time to talk about one of the year's Best Picture nominees, Josh Safdie's Marty Supreme, the most utterly Jewish film nominated for the award since the Coen brothers' masterpiece, A Serious Man. I'm Jonathan Friedmann.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios.
We're joined by our good friend Mathew Klickstein, an author and pop culture historian whose books have covered such topics as Nickelodeon, The Simpsons, the San Diego Comic-Con, and Lloyd Kaufman, president and co-founder of Troma Entertainment. Matthew, welcome back to Amusing Jews.
Shalom.
So Matthew, Marty Supreme, huh?
Marty Supreme, huh? Indeed. I've seen the movie now a couple times, once in the theater, which unfortunately I think it's one of those films that really requires that experience. There are certain films that come out that I think are very immersive, and being in a movie theater, not just for the screen and the sound, hopefully surround sound, but also the collective experience of being with other people, even if it's just a few other people. I think is really important. Movies like Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I would definitely put this up there. This is an experience film. It is a very immersive film. The Safdie brothers, Josh being one of them, obviously has a real history of creating films, both in their early shorts and then in their features that they've done together and now apart, of really putting you in the mindset of the characters. I wouldn't say they're quite as stylistic as somebody like what Darren Aronofsky could do with a movie like Pi or Requiem for a Dream. But I do feel puts you in the emotional state of the characters, not only the main characters, but all the various characters with the tricks that they use with different camera lenses and the editing. And I guess in that regard, it would be more similar to some of Aronofsky's other films like Black Swan or certainly The Wrestler. So I do feel that being in a theater and being locked in like that is an experience that I would hope people can take. I would imagine it might be playing still in theaters in some parts of the country, especially with the great awards run it's had. If you have to watch it at home, I guess that's how you got to see it. But if you could see it in the theater, I would highly recommend it that way.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe. Matthew, I know that you agree with Jonathan's premise that it's a very Jewish movie. Want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a lot of Judaism, both directly and indirectly, explicitly and implicitly throughout the film. It's made by a profoundly Jewish filmmaker, and even his partners like Ronald Bronstein, who co-writes his films with him, edits the films with him, is Jewish. A lot of the actors and actresses are not only Jewish, but some of the paragons of Jewish culture as far as film and television is concerned. Seeing someone like Fran Drescher, who is so quintessentially Jewish, her voice and her persona, seeing her in a role like this, I think worked exceptionally well. Sandra Bernhard is another great example. And just the feel of it. Timothy Chalamet is Jewish through his mother. And he's wearing a Jewish star. They're using Yiddish through a lot of the film. The setting, the locale, the fact that a lot of the characters are either directly or indirectly affected by the Holocaust. It is a post-war film. The Holocaust comes up. There is a lot in this film that is explicitly Jewish. And then I would say implicitly Jewish, just in the drive forward, the sense of being a misfit, of being a ne'er-do-well, the wanderlust, the finding oneself, the finding the identity being a little bit of a mishmash, being in and out of the diaspora. There's watching the film, even if Timothy Chalamet weren't himself Jewish, even if Josh Safdie, the filmmaker, wasn't Jewish, I would say it's still a very Jewish film without them ever celebrating a Jewish holiday. And yes, there's some Yiddish that's bandied about a little bit, but I could see someone else saying, "What's Jewish about that movie? It's about a ping pong player and he goes to Japan for half of it. What are you talking about?" But the feel, the tone, the style is extremely Jewish. You could even say that Marty is on a certain kind of an exodus throughout a lot of the film. He's trying to kind of escape his life, his bondage. There's a lot of moments of that, and trying to break free, and break through that. And again, just it goes back to even little minutia, the dog being named Moses, and just some of the setting, and little jokes, talking about the garden cafe, and the guy, they had a little conversation. Oh, I get pastrami. Oh, I get beef. Oh, you go, you shakap. I mean, it's peppered throughout the film, and I think it's an important element that makes the film special.
The other thing that's really Jewish about Marty himself, and you alluded to this, is that very talkative, very confident, very clever, very charming, but also very criminal and morally ambiguous. And like, I know that some scholars of kind of the old school Jewish film don't like that portrayal of a Jew, that they're more comfortable with the meek and mild, well-mannered, like the Kletsky character, the Holocaust survivor. Yeah. But there is a character who's very much like that, who's also kind of coded Jewish, and it's Butch Cassidy from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And Paul Newman, sometimes called a six-gun schlemiel in that movie, the idea being that he gets out of trouble by talking his way out and is very charming, but also like questionable. This is kind of an archetype in a way. We don't see it very often in film. It was kind of nice to see a Jewish protagonist who is that way again.
I can't believe you're acting again.
That wasn't acting. He won't let me act.
Yeah, no, that looked frustrating. What's the deal with that guy?
Don't get me started.
Yeah, you were running circles around him.
Of course I am.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was unbelievable.
Stays up for 3 days in a row because his character is supposed to be tired. It's obnoxious.
If he's so committed, why'd he stop the scene? Why didn't he punch his hand through the screen and unlock it from the other side?
I've read and seen and heard and could understand why some people might be upset at the portrayal of the character, that he is this kind of snide, squirrely, weaselly hawkster, to use the actual Yiddish, somebody who is kind of conniving and being manipulative and running around. Actually, just now thinking about it, though, I'm reading right now currently Shalom Aleikum's a collection of his short stories. His stories, of course, many of which were turned into Fiddler on the Roof later on, and had been adapted in other ways. They're all really funny, very smart stories. They make me laugh out loud even now. And there was a part where one of the characters is talking about how Jews aren't criminals, Jews aren't thieves. What we do is we can be manipulative, we could be clever, we could be funny. Like, he kind of plays it off like, no, don't you dare call Jews thieves. We are just, kind of smarter than the average bear. We do these other things. So he was kind of playing off it. And of course, it's Shalom Aleikum, so he did it much better than I did. I'm not doing it justice. But it's making me think right now, like, that's always been a part of even our storytelling. Because I just read it in Shalom Aleikum, one of the most Jewish storytellers of our time, that he talks about that. And I think it's important. I think it's important to show Jewish characters like this too, that they can be tough. And even though he's kind of little and he's kind of squirrely, he still is able to get his way, and he's still able to compete with bigger guys and in hustles and in the South and out in the street and here and there. And a lot of it, he does it through being smart and being shrewd and in being funny and in being charming. And those are not bad qualities, especially right off of just a few years earlier, the Holocaust ended. He knows people, he's talking with people, he's playing against them who were in the Holocaust. And he's still able to say, screw it, and move forward. He's even able to crack pretty dark jokes about the Holocaust. Now we can watch that and go, wow, that's pretty controversial. But if you think about him doing that in the movie 10 years after the World War II ends, maybe less. That's pretty ballsy, but he does it, and it works.
What do you make of the explicit reference to the Holocaust with Klickstein's story about the honey?
That is a big part of being Jewish and Jewish culture, is resilience and innovation and a kind of fuck you attitude about it. I mean, he knew how dangerous that was for him to do that, and he did it anyway. And I would suggest that it's not just about the character. For those who aren't as familiar with the film or haven't seen it, it's not really a spoiler. It's just a very quick little moment. It's the one scene in the movie that is a flashback to someone literally I think he's at Auschwitz. I mean, he's at, one of the numero uno ones. And because he is a great ping pong player, because he's a great table tennis player, very much like the character in the Pianist, and in, certain other characters throughout history, both real and not, some of the Nazis working with him kind of give him a break and just are fans of his and think he's a cool guy because he's this great table tennis player, and give him some extra privileges where he's able to go out in the field. He's still doing something very dangerous. He is defusing bombs. They actually show him how to do it, but it gives him a little bit more freedom and independence. And while he's out there in the woods, as dangerous as it is, he sees and finds a beehive. And through, again, just some innovation and through clearly knowing what he's doing, he's able to get the bees to go away, find the actual honey, break it open, and he smears it on himself for his inmates back at the bunk to lick off him for sustenance. And it's a beautiful moment, and they make it a beautiful moment in the movie. It's operatic. It's the camera is very low, so he looks very heroic and triumphant. And it's almost like he's a mother feeding her children. Like they're suckling off him. I mean, it's a really profound moment. It only lasts for a few seconds. The whole story, the whole flashback's like maybe a minute long. But it is something that happens, and it does stick with you through the rest of the film. But I do think some of it too is, screw you, I'm going to find a way to give honey to my boys back home, even though it's very dangerous. I mean, it is definitively the idea of the Fiddler on the Roof. We're scared, we're precarious, it's dangerous, we don't know what to do, we're a little lost, but you know what? How are we going to handle it? We're going to play some damn good music. Fuck you. And so I think that's what that moment is. And I think it is a metaphor for the entire rest of the movie. I think it allows you to agree that the main character needs to be like that his whole character is that. He is doing that. He is trying to provide not just for himself, but for his family. He says it throughout the film. He wants to take care of his mother. He wants to be a man. He wants to be a mensch. He wants to ultimately take care of this girl who he got pregnant. And yeah, it might seem that he is being rather deviant and devious and a bit of a cad through a lot of the film, and he is. But she also is somebody that he takes care of throughout the film and that he loves. And even at one point, she deceives him, spoiler alert. And he still loves her. He's still there with her. He's known her since he's 8 years old. She is like a sister to him. And I think it's where, without getting too much into it, where the movie even goes toward the end of he wants to be a good man. He wants to be a good provider. And so he's going to do it however he has to do it.
Most interesting thing to me about the entire film is the relationship between Mouser and Klickstein, the Holocaust survivor, and how gracious and humble and selfless Klickstein is, and how the opposite Marty ultimately is. And they become friends, and they do the Harlem Globetrotter stuff and all that. But for me, this is maybe one of those moments where we see two different archetypes or two different characters that we often see in Jewish films. One being the Holocaust survivor who has went through hell, real trauma, real, worst, cases we can even imagine, and comes out of it being very, again, humble, very gracious, very sweet, and, just wants to kind of find his own path, but not, rock too many boats ultimately. Whereas Marty, who could have just, had this shoe business and, played it by the rules and done fairly well for himself, he is a very aggressive striver, a social striver, and ends up getting a lot of trauma and trouble on his own accord, So it's like the difference of how do we react when the trauma is externally placed on us versus when we create it ourselves. And you see kind of, two very different personality types and two different ways of dealing with the messiness of the world in a way.
Lest we forget another big Jewish cultural signifier, when Kevin O'Leary's character, the businessman, is talking with the Marty Supreme character about the kind of Harlem Globetrotters moment or kind of rally that he's been doing. He refers to it as vaudeville. He actually says that. There's a moment like that. He actually says, this vaudeville thing you're doing. And Marty actually takes it as a bit of a slight, So I think that that's an important little note to make too. But much more importantly, one of the reasons that I was so blown away by the film and going back to this sense of, the good Jew versus the quote unquote bad Jew, or the person who's striving versus the person who just kind of plays it like it lays. Unless we forget, like, as you just said, I mean, the movie opens with Marty in this shoe store doing his job, doing a pretty decently good job. Clearly he's about to become manager, and he's related to the owner. I mean, it's his shoe store, basically. I mean, he got there nepotistically. I mean, he really didn't have to do and doesn't have to do anything to work at this shoe store. It just works. Like, it would have been the easiest thing. What does he choose to do to get out of that life, to make his life better? And I do believe he believes, other people in his life better. Something that is ridiculous. Someone calls it, oh, it's just this silly vaudeville thing. Something that isn't even really a sport yet. I mean, throughout the film, he's talking about table tennis as a sport of the future. Like, most people don't even know what it is yet. And he's talking about it. Like, that's so much of what the driving force of the film is that he's doing something that isn't even really that established yet. And so that does seem like a toy. It does seem like this kind of sideshow, this little vaudeville thing or whatever it is. And he's taking it so seriously. He's putting all of his blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. There's no money in it yet. There's no fame to it yet. It's just this thing he does. He might as well be playing foosball or something like that. And I think that that's an important part of him being the striver. And I would say, to me, what the movie really is about, even more than the Jewish experience then and now, but I feel it's extremely autobiographical. To me, I'm watching that movie and I'm thinking, this is Josh Safdie saying to himself, to his family, to his friends, to everyone who said he couldn't do what he did to become this important filmmaker, which he's been now for a while, with his brother Adat, and saying, yeah, I'm not going to just be a regular Joe Schmo. I'm going to go and make films, and they're going to be audacious films. They're going to be provocative films. They're going to be films that are nuts. To me, Marty Supreme and the idea of him choosing table tennis as the vehicle for it is him saying, screw all of you. You all told me I couldn't do it. You all told me I wouldn't be here. And now here I am, and I'm number one. And I did it with a movie about friggin' ping pong.
I'm a big table tennis head since I was a kid. I really like table tennis. I was looking to see more of it in the movie. In a way, it felt a little bit like a MacGuffin, that there could have been more table tennis. And it feels like now, based on what you're saying, Josh Safdie used table tennis as a vehicle to do this whole like biopic about himself or autobiographical thing to say like, look at me, fuck you, I can do whatever I want. Also, I thought I wanted to hear more what you had to say about Reisman. You were talking about the character of Marty Mauser being outside of time, being forward thinking. And the thing that I found first when I went to his Wikipedia page was that he was a stickler for the hard bat style of table tennis. And that's like one of the first moments of tension. And I thought, this is going to be like the Bob Dylan movie all over again. They're going to make an entire movie about him trying to convince people to not use soft table tennis paddles. Well, no, that was like a one scene, and then he throws a shit fit and he owes a bunch of money, and that's the rest of that. The film is just about his own journey. Like, okay, he's forward thinking and he's pushing the envelope and he wants ping pong to become an international sport. And yeah, spoiler, it is in the Olympics. It's not quite the big deal that he thought it would be. But now soft bats are ubiquitous. Why do you think he's such a stickler for, old ways? Okay, that feels kind of Jewish, Yeah, he wants to keep some things old and some things new.
He's obviously a very meticulous guy. And throughout the film, I think it goes back to him being something of a mensch. He has a vision. He has his code. He has his set of rules. They might not align with what other people think are, good rules and the Hammurabi code or that kind of thing. But he does have a lot of fealty for the most part to his code and to his vision and to what he's doing. So much of the movie is about get out of my way, don't distract me, even if you're my mom, even if you're my pregnant girlfriend who I've known since I'm 8, even if there's somebody who's going to get shot or whatever, like I have to do this. This has to come first. This is who I am in my way. And I think it does go back to what you're just saying about the paddle.
There were moments in the movie where I was actually taken out of the film by the score. I know you have some ideas about why that score was chosen. Ultimately, like the 1950s is so rich in music, right? Whether it's jazz, rock, even like orchestral scores of that era. I saw it as a real missed opportunity as someone who kind of likes movie music more than I like movies, actually. Like, I think it was such a poor choice. Like, I'll give you an example. When we're first introduced to like the international ping pong players, I think it was like round 1 of the tournament, and they're playing in that hall and it's kind of darkly lit. It looked to me like Bloodsport only because of the music. Like the music was Bloodsport music playing over this. And there was a moment where I was like, what am I watching?
What's the score here?
19-4.
The Japanese guy?
Japanese guys trashing Bailey.
What's he using? What's that paddle?
I don't know, mate. No one knows.
That happened several times in the film, and I just want to get that off my chest because I thought as great as the film was in terms of a filmmaking perspective that you're giving us, the musical choice was kind of ridiculous, I thought.
I mean, obviously it was a counterintuitive choice, maybe controversial for some. Clearly it is for you. I'm curious, in addition to Daniel's score, and Daniel's worked with the Safdies on their other projects as well. That's actually one of the aspects that really drew my attention. Like a lot of people, I entered the Safdie universe with Uncut Gems. But the trailer to Uncut Gems, it just didn't look that interesting to me. I didn't really get what was going on. I don't really care about the jewelry trade, but I finally saw it and I was stunned. I then and now believe that aside from maybe Martin Scorsese and a few of the old stalwarts, Paul Thomas Anderson, that the Safdies are the best living filmmakers. But I really enjoyed Uncut Gems. And part of what I loved about it was the music. I felt the music was unique and the way that they used it was really unique and was part of what made me say, these are not just great filmmakers. They know how to create a world. And I think they did that fantastically. And then when I saw some of their older films, I realized the music, like Good Times, for example, was really a big part of what made those movies so singular. And even though they have all of them, especially their earlier films, of course, a really gritty, DIY kind of punk rock feel, the music, even though similarly gritty and similarly hardcore, give them those films a certain gloss and polish that I do feel was there in Marty Supreme. The reason, though, of course, that they did that, and to me it was very obvious, is twofold. One is Marty is constantly moving, constantly outside of his time, constantly a maverick, constantly a misfit, constantly living in kind of another place. He sees the world differently. He is throughout the film something of an alien, and he is very forward moving. He's always thinking about what's going to be happening next. And so to me, intellectually, I do like that they chose to make the music that as well. He's kind of almost a time traveler through the entire film.
Like, I can understand why something might be chosen or why there might have been some kind of subtle like messaging going on with the music. It doesn't mean that it necessarily works, right? So if we can just look at it from like a film goer's experience and not like the analytical, I could just say that from my viewing, and I'm not like a dumb viewer, but I'm a viewer, like it just didn't work for me. in the sense that there's just so much, maybe as a fan of music from the 50s myself, there were just so many other opportunities to use music that would have been indigenous to that time period and wouldn't have taken me out of it. And I could still understand that a character is forward thinking or ahead of their time without needing, the crutch of 1980s music to remind me of that. You know what I'm saying?
I do, and two other quick things I'll say about it is that that was part of what, especially the first experience I had watching it in the theater. I was really blown away. I did feel when I left that I had seen one of the best movies of the last 20 years. I hit up a number of my filmmaker friends, and the text message also said the same thing with an image of Marty Supreme, which was, Josh just won. He's the best living filmmaker. I mean, I left just totally jubilant. Maybe some of it was just my mindset at the moment. I've seen it since, not on a big screen, and maybe that might have dampened my excitement for it a little bit. I didn't like it quite as much. But when I saw it in the theater, I was really blown away. And part of it was that music. And I think, so for me, aesthetically, I was into it. I certainly wasn't thinking what we're talking about now, because they tease it a little bit in the trailer. And I think I knew that there was going to be a little bit of that, but I didn't realize how pronounced it was throughout the film. And the second thing I would say is it is very much integral to clearly the way they were developing the film, because I don't know if you notice, in seeing it the second time, I realized there are lines that characters say that come from, or are lines that are lyrics from those songs. The best example, and I love the moment, it works so well for me. To me, it is the best choice just because it's such a hot moment of when Marty's character is walking, I think going to the sort of scene you're saying is very Bloodsport-esque, and it's Public Image Limited's, I believe it's called The Order of Death, and it just says over and over again, this is what you want, this is what you get, this is what you want, this is what you get. And I love that moment. I mean, it really is, to me, feels a little bit like John Travolta walking down the street with Staying Alive playing, or, Sylvester Stallone going in with, Eye of the Tiger. I mean, it just, for me, it works so well. And I kind of like that Josh maybe was just like, you know what, that's the song that's in my head right now. I'm going to put it in the movie. Fuck you. And it could work. And then later in the movie, he is saying to Kevin O'Leary's character when he's getting smacked by the paddle, this is what you want, this is what you get, and he says it. So I think it was narratively very much a part of what Josh's vision was. And it wasn't just him being playful or silly or specifically contrapuntal in that way. So I'll give him that as well. But I agree with you that all sounds very intellectualized. For me personally, I just enjoyed aesthetically how it worked. And it was a big part of why, when I saw it the first time, I was blown away to the point where I just said, Josh has won. He's the best director right now. And this is one of the best movies of the last 20 years.
Thanks so much, Matthew, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.